Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Salar, for the nice introduction. Well, I'm not the inventor of JPEG. I took part. This is one of those complex systems. There are probably as many inventors as there are participants to this event. All right, this afternoon I'm going to take 15 minutes of your time to address, if I may say so, the elephant in the room, which is the quality. And no matter what you do, not even in VR, AR, MR, and no matter where in the chain you are, as a creator, as a consumer, or anything in between, we are all concerned about quality, right? We strive to get the biggest and best quality possible, and in our case, the best quality of immersive experiences. Why in XR we want to measure it is by itself something interesting. And I want to give you 3 reasons. There are, of course, many more reasons, but 3 main reasons I could think about. One is that we have to always make sure if the use of XR is actually bringing an added value to if we don't use it. It has been said many times. I was in a workshop yesterday, it was repeated everywhere, where you want to create something in VR, well, the first question is it really needed? And as an end user also, you want to consume something, you want to get some information. Is it really needed that it should be in XR? The second reason is it bringing the intended experience? Because a lot of, especially content creators, they have some vision, they have some ideas, then they use all these nice XR technologies, and they're hoping that this is actually creating the experience they were thinking about. But is it? That's a big question. Now, regardless whether yes or no, the intended experience is done, we always strive as humans, right, to improve things, and having a feedback of how well it has or has not been fulfilled in terms of the experience where it was intended, we want to have a way to improve it. That's what defines human nature. I want to show you a very, very short video. Many of you probably have seen. I don't even know who really made it. I took it from Green TV. And I think it's by itself very revealing. Can we have audio? So this is another AR, right? That's the actual reality. It's an empty goggle.
Actual reality. Sick.
In my research, I work a lot on especially the visual side. My dream is to come up with a goggle that will feel as another goggle that doesn't have anything. It just sees the world around it. But is it really enough? Keep that in mind. I'm going to come back to it. Now, an old guy, very old guy, by the name William Thomson, said something very important. Actually, he was not an idiot. He was the famous Lord Kelvin. Those of you who have maybe scientific background, you maybe have heard about a unit of temperature called Kelvin, next to Celsius and Fahrenheit. Well, it's him. He's done a lot of other things than just defining temperature and how it is measured. He says, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it, which is very true. That's why we want to measure it. Another old guy said, well, you know, in order to measure it, you have to first define what is quality, right? If you cannot define it, you cannot measure it. That is where I'm going to spend a little bit of time and draw maybe some questions. Maybe not all of them have an answer. You know, quality, definition of quality is really very difficult. As humans, it's very easy, right? You do something, you give it to a human, if it is intended to a human, very easy. The person is going to tell you how good is the quality. Defining it, especially for machines, in an automatic way, it's very, very difficult. Talking about the elephant, that's the same big elephant, right? Those of you who have heard about the poem by Blind Man and the Elephant by John Godfrey Sachs, they understand what I'm referring to. This elephant, depending on what you do, what you're coming from, what's your perspective, has always a different answer. And in fact, this is the challenge we are facing also in our community when we want to define what is the quality of immersive experience in XR. Of course, this hasn't, the fact that this is a very difficult challenge hasn't stopped people to do that. Engineers have tried. In field of communication technologies, information communication technologies, there are actually a lot of concepts of defining quality, and on top of it, there have been definition of things like quality of service. Maybe some of you have heard about what is quality of service. I don't want to go into details. Just know that quality service is something that broadcasters and service providers in general defined in order to understand whether what they are doing has sufficient quality. And by definition, because they defined it, it's a provider-centric issue. And normally, when you have a service provider-centric definition, it means that it's looking at the average or the majority, not at the outliers. And not always knowing about what is the average impression is the right way. You know, think about, there is a joke about it, right? Take an accountant, put him in an ice until the half, in all the legs, and then the upper part of the body, just throw at them fire and tell them, how do you feel? And he's gonna say, in average, okay. So one of the problems with the average, other than what I told you, is that it defies user preference. We are different. We have different preferences. And this should be taken into account. Another one is that when we talk about average, we forget that there is different contexts when we consume content, when we experience things. This is one way of looking at it, but there are many, many different ways of looking at it, right? Now, because multimedia is becoming user-centric, and certainly XR is user-centric, we need a definition of quality that is more user-centric, right? And this has given us a move towards another concept called quality of experience. Quality of experience is a way to define quality, but from the perspective of the user. So how do you do this? Well, not by only considering that humans are perception machines. It helps, right? As humans, we have all sorts of sensors, and they're never perfect, by the way. If taking into account this imperfection, you could actually do a better job in defining quality, because sometimes numerically some things have a lot of importance, but in fact, human perception doesn't really find that to be as important. So it helps, but it actually is very dangerous to stop there. There are so many other influencing factors. There are some technical influencing factors, like which device you're using, which network you are going through, even what's the content type, the format. Is it 360? Is it ultra high definition? Is it light field? Is it point cloud? Then there are a few social and psychological factors, like what's your expectation as a user? The first color TV that was introduced created a wow effect. If I show the same thing to you now, you will be very disappointed. So expectation is important, but also the content itself has a lot of influence, and your interest, and the environment. And of course, in between these two, there are a lot of things like the context, that is a general thing, and the task and applications you have in mind. But also, we should not forget, although I'm talking a lot about visual, experience is always multisensory, right? And again here, I just want to show you something. This is actually an old movie 77, very short, just for you to get an example. Can we have the sound up?
Come in, I'm in the den.
Guess who?
Jaja Gabor.
Oh, Donald, you're always kidding.
I see you've started smoking again.
I'm on another diet.
Oh.
And you didn't even notice my perfume. Smell.
Okay, I guess you get the picture, right? So if we want to really have a true experience, rich experience, in extended reality, we need more than all the audiovisual. So, haptic and olfactive, even gustative, taste, right? And people are doing this nowadays. Not that it's perfect, but they are doing it. But we know from the lesson of the augmented, the actual reality, that actually there is more than this, right? We interact with the environment, but the environment interacts with us too. If a train is moving very, very quickly and turning right, you have an interaction imposed on you. You don't choose it. It's the environment that. So we have to take these things also into account. So how do you resolve it? There are many people trying to do this. My lab and many, many other labs in research, they are doing this. My favorite, which is a little bit long-term, is actually creation of a digital twin. You can use an AI system that you train with the sensors that are coming from Internet of Things. All these sensors, they actually receive the same information as you receive, and then you can actually make an AI system that will feel and understand you the most. That may be a little bit scary, but this is actually, in my opinion, the most favorite one. Once it is done, it's very easy to actually define experience according to you. So let me just wrap it up, because I'm a little bit late also. The ability to measure qualitative experience is extremely important to define whether XR is going to be successful or not. Don't answer to this properly, it will not give us the expected result. True immersion is multisensory. We should not forget it. Experience that is immersive is multisensory. Experience is also individual. So whatever we do, we should somehow take into account different personalities, different profiles, different people, interest. Experience has a lot of influencing factor, and it's not only the content and the type of device you use. And there are some promising solutions. I didn't talk about them. Hopefully we can have a discussion offline about what some of these things, and hopefully this digital twin really can happen. Of course, it doesn't, like any other technology, come without its own challenges and creates also maybe some other challenges we didn't expect. But this is more or less what I had to tell you. Thank you very much.